What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. In this video I want to do a 7,000 mile review of my Magnuson Supercharger. This is the Magnuson TVS 2650 that I had installed on my 2021 Silverado Trail Boss 5.3 liter V8. And because this is a 2021, it did not come with active fuel management or displacement on demand or cylinder deactivation, because this is a COVID truck. This truck was assembled in March of 2021 during the lockdowns. So because of the shortages due to COVID, this truck did not come with active fuel management from the factory. So that made it a great candidate for adding power and maintaining reliability. We know how unreliable the displacement on demand or cylinder deactivation systems are, and pretty much all the big three automakers have them: Ford, Dodge, and Chevy. Chevy's not the only company to have cylinder deactivation. Ram also has it as well. Okay, but also this truck did not come with auto start stop, and it did not come with the grill shutters. So all that extra emissions crap it did not come with because of COVID and the parts shortages. Okay, so I actually had this Magnuson Supercharger installed by Lingenfelter Performance Engineering. Some of you guys probably know who they are. They specialize in adding power to Chevy vehicles. They're famous for building out Corvettes, but because the Chevy V8s are so similar to the Corvette V8s, you know, they're close relatives with slight differences. The motors are slightly different, and this motor is an L82, so it was a limited production motor before the current L84. It's kind of a rare motor, and especially because it was built during COVID, it's very rare. And so far, after 7,000 miles, everything is fine. I'm not noticing any problems, any major issues. There are some issues that I encountered, but overall I would say that my experience has been great, and if I could do it again, I would do it again. If I had another truck, or if I was advising someone, I would say, yeah, go ahead, get your truck supercharged, because these 5.3 liter engines from GM are extremely stout from the factory. You know, we've heard of the 6.2 liter engines and all the problems they've had, but the 5.3 has been proven for decades to be extremely reliable. Before the current generation of 5.3s, which are known as the Ecotechs, they used to have the Vortex. And then before the Vortex, they also had other variations of the 5.3. So this engine, in one form or another, has been around for 30 plus years. And then going back to the LS motors as well. Okay, so this motor is an offshoot of the LS motors. It's based off of the LS motor. Okay, and we know how reliable the LS motors are in the Corvettes and other vehicles, and so Chevy just basically made some minor tweaks to the LS motor to make it better for truck applications, okay, rather than sports cars. But we know the LS motors are very reliable, and the 5.3 is legendary for reliability. So if you have a 5.3, I highly recommend you supercharge it. If you have relatively low miles and you've taken good care of it and it doesn't have any issues that you're aware of, obviously before you install any kind of power adder, whether it's a cam or supercharger or something else, you always want to do an engine check and a transmission check. Make sure your transmission is in good condition, that it's not slipping gears, you're not having issues with your transmission, because when you add 100 or 200 horsepower, you know, if you have any slippage of your transmission before the power adder, you can believe that the power adder will finish off your tranny. Okay, I'm going to talk about the transmission in just a second here, but Basically the 5.3 liter, very stout motor, especially the version that I have, the COVID motor that does not have displacement on demand from the factory, which is very, very rare. But if you can afford it, before you install your supercharger, I would recommend doing a DOD delete. If you can delete your displacement on demand before you install the supercharger, because you're going to be in there anyway. You're going to have to take the intake manifold off, so it's just a little bit more work to delete your active fuel management completely if you have it. I don't have it, okay, from the factory. And by the way, my supercharger is not the only mod that I have on this truck. I've modded this truck quite a bit. I've added a lot of lighting. I have ditch lights, spotlights, fog lights, rock lights. I have some lights on the headache rack in the back. I have these steel bumpers in the front and in the rear. I have a Ready Lift 2.0 that added an extra 2 inches of lift on top of this 2-inch factory lift, the Trail Boss factory lift, which comes with skid plates as well, and the Auto Track 2-speed transmission, which gives me 4 low. And I have these Nitto trail grapplers. These are like 34.5s, so just under 35s by 12, and they're on method bead grip wheels, which let me air down real low. But so far, after 7,000 miles, Magnuson Supercharger TVS 2650 installed by Lingenfelter Performance Engineering. No major issues to report. But I understand it's only 7,000 miles. We'll have to wait and see what happens at 20,000 miles, 30,000 miles, 50,000 miles. That's when we're really going to see if there's any issues. But the Magnuson Supercharger is actually an Eaton supercharger, and Magnuson just does all the packaging and the wiring, but it's really an Eaton blower, okay? And if you guys are not familiar with the company Eaton, Eaton is legendary for building various types of parts for industrial machinery, including like rock hauling trucks and heavy duty excavators in the mining industry, logging industry. So that's why I chose the Magnuson kit, because it's very reliable, it has really good reviews, and it's an Eaton blower, versus if you go with a Whipple. You know, Whipple makes the blower in-house, and they don't have that same track record like Eaton or Magnuson. So you really are basically getting a industrial grade supercharger because it's made by Eaton, okay? So that means that the supercharger is probably going to last as long as the truck, I would imagine. And I'll let you guys know if anything happens. But so far, after 7,000 miles, no issues whatsoever. There are some minor issues that I've encountered. One of them was related to a mistake during the install, and the other one I think is related to a large diameter throttle body. So I'll get into that in a second. But I'm not having any issues with the engine. My engine did not blow up. My transmission is not blowing up. I'm not slipping gears. Now, to be fair, I don't, do wide open throttle runs like every single day. I basically drive this truck like a grandpa around town, mostly to save on fuel, because this truck now weighs 6,000 pounds with the bumpers and the tires. The factory curb weight of this truck is like 5,200 pounds, and I added like 800 pounds of weight to it. So, it does burn a little bit more fuel, especially because of the tires as well. Much larger and heavier tires. So I do drive it like a grandpa around town, but occasionally when I'm on a straight road and there's nobody around, once a week or every 2-3 weeks, I do like to do a little bit of a wide open throttle run. Nothing too crazy, just for fun. And by the way, guys, it is extremely windy here today. I'm trying my best to film this video in these crazy winds. Look at the tree shaking here. Okay, so forgive me for the wind, but You know, if I were to wait for perfect weather in the fall in Pennsylvania, that's never going to happen, unfortunately. You know, it's Halloween 2025, by the way, and the weather starts to get pretty rough right around now. As we get into November, seasons change and the weather changes. We start to get the nasty winds and lake effect snow and ice and all that. So I'm trying my best here. So just be patient with me. But this truck has the 6L80 transmission, which is also the most reliable transmission out of all of the light duty, if you want to call them light duty full-size trucks. The 8 speeds had issues, the 10 speeds have issues. The 6-speed did have some issues, but not nearly as bad as the 8 or 10 speed. I haven't noticed any issues with this transmission. This truck has 49,000 miles. The supercharger was installed at 42,000 miles. I purchased the truck at 28,000 miles. It was a lease truck for 2 years, so from 2021 to 2023, it was a lease truck in Michigan. And then I purchased it, and I've had it ever since. So I've owned the truck for 2 years, actually. I just passed the 2-year anniversary of this truck, which I named Betsy. So it was just Betsy's 2-year anniversary. And by the way, I did win an award at one of the largest four-wheel drive truck shows, or 4x4 shows in the country, the Four-Wheel Jamboree here in Pennsylvania in Bloomsburg in July of this year. I won the award of excellence for my truck. So that was totally unexpected, and that was really awesome. I did post some videos from the Jamboree. If you want to see them, check out my truck and off-road playlist. I'll leave a link in the top right corner if you want to see that. But overall, good experience, and like I said, no issues with the transmission so far, no issues with the engine. It's not going to blow up anytime soon, I don't think, and the transmission's not going to blow up. I'm not slipping any gears. You know, there's a lot of people out there who say that you have to rebuild your transmission before you install a supercharger, and I'm going to say that that's BS, and these are people that either spend too much time on the computer and not enough time with tools in their hands or behind the wheel of an actual truck, or they're just haters of GM and they're Ford and Ram guys. But these 6L80s in the half-ton Chevys, they can handle up to 660 pounds of torque, okay? So that's basically the equivalent to an Allison 1000 transmission. The Allison 1000 is rated to also about 660 pounds of torque. So you can think of this truck as having an old Allison 1000 in it, which is the same transmission that the LBZ and the LLY and the LB7 Duramax has had. So it's a pretty stout transmission. It can handle up to 660 pounds of torque. And if you factor in roughly a 25% drivetrain loss, if I'm making 460 pounds of torque to the rear wheels, you know, 25% will be roughly 600 pounds of torque. So I'm at the upper limit of what this transmission is rated for. I'm getting close to the upper limit. But if you also do like a 20 to 25% drivetrain loss calculation on the horsepower, I'm pushing like 550 horsepower at the crank. So that's pretty impressive, guys. 550 horsepower, 600 pounds of torque at the crank for just mild boost. I haven't installed a boost gauge, and I've used a data logger. I have Diablo Sport, but I think the Diablo Sport is not reading the boost properly. But it does read the manifold vacuum and the manifold absolute pressure. And based on that, I calculated that this truck roughly has about 11 pounds of boost. But I could be wrong. I know that the factory calibration from Magnuson only puts the boost up to like 8 PSI. But remember, this is a Lingenfelter installed Magnuson, okay? So it probably has a little bit more boost because Lingenfelter did a custom tune on this thing. They did not use the Magnuson factory calibration, and that's one of the big reasons I went to Lingenfelter, is because they were going to do a custom tune on the dyno, and because of that they can really squeeze out as much horsepower as possible safely, while also they also actually tuned my transmission as well. So because of the transmission tune, the truck is just super awesome to drive, boosted, even at low speeds, low RPMs, just cruising around town. It drives like a Cadillac basically. I put this emblem on myself. I think it's pretty unique and cool. Okay, but they did do a transmission tune on it as well, and that trans tune is just absolutely amazing. It's not too soft and not too hard. Okay, with any kind of power adding, you want to tune the transmission as well, because if you don't tune the transmission, you could either burn out your clutches or you can burn out the gears. Okay, because if it shifts too hard, then you're slamming the gears, right? So then you're going to wear out the gears. And if it's shifting too soft, then you're saving the gears, but you're wearing out the clutch. Now the gears can handle a lot more abuse than the clutches can. The clutch packs wear out first before the gears. Okay, and the problem with the way that GM tunes these trucks from the factory is that they have such soft shifting. I don't know why they do that. I think probably to make the driving experience, like, you know, more smooth, so you don't feel the truck shifting, you know, especially under load. When the engine's under load, you can feel the gears shifting more. So they make like a really smooth shift, which is nice, but you're paying for that, okay? And you're paying for that in the form of your clutch packs are taking a beating. It's kind of like if you're driving a manual transmission and you're shifting gears and you're burning your clutch. You know, that's basically like almost like you're burning your clutch. Same principle. So what Lingenfelter did was they made the shift a little bit firmer, so the shift is more firm. You can feel the gears as you're driving, you know, going in and out of gears, but it's not like slamming. It's not like a hard shift, okay? And so that's what you want. You want a firm shift because that's going to save your clutch packs, and it's also not going to beat up on your gears as well. You kind of want to be in that Goldilocks zone, and the only way you can do that is with a custom transmission tune. Okay, you need someone that knows how to tune the transmission so you have that firm shift. Okay, but actually this truck did have a custom tune in it and a cold air intake and some other mods before I dropped it off to Lingenfelter to have it supercharged. I put a K&N intake. I also put one of those mass airflow sensors, a MAF sensor that's supposed to add a little bit of power, and then I had it custom tuned by Diablo with a Diablo Sport tuner, and that made a big difference in the power. And they actually dynoed this before they installed the supercharger. It produced 300 horsepower on the dyno and actually 350 pounds of torque on the dyno at the tires. That's actually really good if you do a 25% or 20% drivetrain loss calculation. That's pushing 375 horsepower and like 450 pounds of torque, something like that, 425. And that's just with a simple remote tune and a K&N intake. So if you don't want to supercharge your truck, you could at least do that. My recommendation is to do a remote tune with Diablo. He's famous on the forums. He's based out of Utah, I believe, and he can do a remote tune with you, and he really firms up the shifting. He adds a little bit of power, makes the truck a whole lot better than the factory tune that's in there. Started to run out of light, So I had to turn the truck on, check out my Diode Dynamics rock lights, and I got this light bar there from Diode Dynamics as well. So the biggest problem I ran into so far was that I developed a battery drain because of incorrect calibration. So the dyno tuning was great, the power is great, the transmission shifting is great, but what happened was, for some reason, they applied the incorrect base calibration to the ECM, and because of that, the ECM was not shutting off when it was supposed to. So the ECM was basically staying on even with the truck turned off, and so that was draining my battery. Like after a couple of days, the battery would be down to like 11 volts, and I actually killed one battery because I went away for like a week and a half, and I came back and the battery was drained. Luckily I got it replaced under warranty, but the issue was resolved by Lingenfelter. They actually, the vice president called me directly, and I have his phone number still, and he was text messaging me and calling me throughout the process of getting it resolved, which was awesome. And so basically it was a simple fix. They just applied the incorrect base calibration for like a generic 2021 to 2025, you know, Gen 4 Silverado that has the active fuel management, that has auto start stop and active shutters. And so they just thought that, they assumed that this truck was a standard Silverado from this generation, which has all that emissions stuff. And I told you guys that because of COVID, the emissions equipment that are normally on these trucks did not get installed. And so what happened was the computer, the engine computer, was waiting for feedback loops from these emissions components that I don't have because of the calibration. So the calibration said, oh, this truck has auto start stop, this truck has shutters, this truck has AFM. And when the truck gets turned off, the ECM waits for certain feedback from all these different components to then turn itself off, because it checks all these systems and it tries to get feedback from them before powering down. And because I don't have those components, the truck was not powering down. It was staying on because it was waiting for feedback from components that did not exist on my truck. And the reason I knew that is one time I started the truck and the little A symbol, it's like an A with a green circle around it, and that's showing the auto start stop, which I've never seen that before. And I only saw that after the Lingenfelter tune was put on it, and that told me that somewhere in the tune it's told the ECM that I have auto start stop, and it was waiting for feedback from the system, and after I shut the truck off, and it never got the feedback. So it was a simple fix. I mailed my ECM out to get a proper base calibration, and that was it, and the battery drain issue was fixed. But I really appreciated the vice president of Lingenfelter Performance Engineering, Brandon. He called me and spoke to me on the phone and said he felt really sorry for my issue, and it was a mistake, and that they wanted to make it right for me. So that's what they did, and they followed up with me multiple times. So big thumbs up to Lingenfelter Performance Engineering. They did a great job with this install. With the custom tune, they probably squeezed out, you know, 50 more horsepower than the Magnuson factory calibration, and really smooth shifting. I mean, just, they did an awesome job. Another issue I've run into that I just noticed is at idle, I get a big fluctuation, especially when the truck is cold. And I think that has something to do with the large diameter throttle body. So when they installed the supercharger, I had the option of putting in a Lingenfelter large diameter throttle body, which is what they use on their Corvettes. It's a 95 millimeter throttle body, so it's larger much larger than the 5.3 throttle body and larger than the 6.2 throttle body by quite a bit as well. It's I don't know how many millimeters, but it's a couple millimeters bigger than the 6.2 throttle body, and then the 6.2 throttle body is a couple millimeters bigger than the 5.3. So my guess is because of the large diameter throttle body, I think at idle speeds, when I'm in park, I think that it has something to do with too much air getting in, you know, and you know, because of that, it's the idle's kind of fluctuating up and down. But once the truck gets warmed up and I'm in an open, I think a closed loop, once I'm in a closed loop, that goes away. It kind of fluctuates between like 750 and like 450 RPM, but when it's in drive or in reverse, no issues. It's just when it's in park. So I don't know what's causing that, and I don't think it's a big issue. I don't have any codes or anything, but they did install the larger diameter throttle body, which I think contributed to the extra power gains that they were able to achieve over the Magnuson factory calibration, because the factory calibration calls for just like, I think like 530 horsepower and 540 torque, and I'm up to like 600 torque and 550 horsepower. But overall, good experience, no issues to report, 7,000 miles. I'm gonna see if I can actually pop the hood and show you the supercharger again, and I'll do a couple of quick revs. It does make a very distinct whistle at higher RPMs at wide open throttle, and what I'll do is I'll actually attach a clip of me doing a dirt drag where I went up to like 5,000 RPM, and you could really hear that whistle. It's very, very pronounced. But I'm gonna pop the hood and I'll do some medium revs. I'll rev up to like 3,000 RPM and you can hear the whistle. But one thing I forgot to mention is that when you're driving around town, like I would say up to like 1,500 or 2,000 RPM, the bypass valve for the most part stays closed. So when you're driving at low RPMs, you're cruising around town, most of the time you're gonna be out of boost, okay? So I'm gonna rev the engine a little bit for you guys so you can hear the boost. You can hear that whistle, but driving around town, it drives like a Cadillac until you put the pedal to the floor. Right around 2,000 to 2,500 RPM, there's a huge jump in torque, and that's really where the torque kind of peaks, like right around 2,500 RPM and onwards. It's just a nice flat torque curve. So once that bypass valve opens up all the way and the boost is at maximum, basically from like 2,500 RPM all the way to red line, you're getting max torque of like 450 pounds of torque at the tires. So that's really impressive. That's a lot of torque at low RPM for a gas engine. And as far as that fluctuating idle situation, it appears to only happen when the truck is cold. Otherwise, it doesn't do it. Like the engine now is warmed up, so the fluctuating idle situation is not as pronounced. But if I were to let this truck sit for a couple hours, like 2-3 hours, until the engine and everything, the cats cool down, and then start it, then I would notice that fluctuation between like 750 and 450 RPM. Otherwise, it's pretty stable, as you can see. But in case you didn't see my first video on the supercharger, I'll show you everything here again. It looks like it came from the factory. You can see the Lingenfelter emblem right there, Magnuson Lingenfelter, and then here I have the Mighty Mouse catch can. It's a vented catch can, so if there's any excess crankcase pressure, I can vent it out. But let me rev it up for you a little bit. I'm gonna rev it up to like 3,000 or so RPM, nothing crazy, so just so you can hear the boost. And just for you guys, I turned on all my lights. Check it out. Rock lights, fog lights, ditch lights, spotlights. Check out the spotlights there. Got the ditch lights. I can see the ditches to the side. And then I just installed these cool rough country lights, which are 360-degree swivel lights. So I can swivel these in any direction that I want. And right now I have them pointed to the side of the truck. So I got full coverage around the truck, 360 degrees. Check that out. But I'm gonna do a full review of all the different mods I've done, showing off all the mods. I got these lights here in the bumper too. Check it out. They're bright as well, thousands of lumens. But also have this dual battery system from Genesis Off-Road. Check that out. Right now it's not linked, but there's my aux battery. Genesis Off-Road. I'm going to be doing a review of this system soon. So that's pretty much it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the review. Hope you found it useful. Like I said, great supercharger, lots of power, no issues so far, 7,000 miles. I'll have to do another review once I reach like 15,000 or 20,000 miles. And stay tuned for more supercharged Silverado content. I'm going to be going to a lot more truck shows in 2026. This year I went to the four-wheel Jamboree, which I won the award over there. Then I went to Truckers for Hope with this truck. That was awesome. Daryl Worley was there. But I'm super excited to do a lot more shows, and maybe I'll do some dirt drags as well. This truck does really well on gravel and dirt with four-wheel drive launching because of the supercharger and those Nitto trail grapplers. Excellent tires, by the way. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.